Most people think winning an ex back is about saying the perfect thing, sending the right text, or proving how much you've changed. But here's the hard truth. None of that works if the dynamic that made them pull away hasn't shifted. The secret isn't about chasing them harder. It's about creating a magnetic shift in how they see you. When you stop acting from a place of fear and start embodying confidence, self-worth, and mystery, you trigger a deep psychological switch in them. Suddenly, they're not thinking about why they left. They're thinking about how they can get your attention again. The power lies in making them feel that losing you was their mistake. And once they sense your energy no longer revolves around them, they can't help but chase. Let's talk about how to create that effect step by step. You know what's fascinating? The moment you stop making someone the center of your universe is the exact moment they start wondering about you again. It's almost counterintuitive, right? Because when someone pulls away or leaves, our first instinct is to do more, to try harder, to reach out, explain ourselves, show them how much we care, and prove we're worth their time. But here's the harsh truth. The more energy you pour into trying to pull them back, the less they feel compelled to come toward you. That's not because they're cruel or because they don't care anymore. It's because human nature responds to scarcity, not abundance. When someone senses that your happiness, your validation, and your emotional stability are still tied to them, they don't feel the need to do anything. You've already handed them all the power. But when you shift your energy, when you pull back, not in a manipulative or spiteful way, but because you realize your value doesn't depend on them, everything changes. They notice it instantly. It's like you've been holding a bright light over them for weeks, and suddenly that light switches off. They're left in the dark wondering, wait, what happened? That's when curiosity creeps in. That's when they start asking themselves the questions you've probably been asking all this time. Are they thinking about me? Have they moved on? Do they still want me? See, there's a quiet confidence in someone who isn't desperate for attention, and that confidence is magnetic. It's not about playing games or pretending you don't care. It's about actually reclaiming the parts of yourself that you lost when you made them the center of your world. Because if we're honest, most of us do this in relationships without even realizing it. We slowly give up the things that make us feel alive. Our hobbies take a back seat. We stop seeing our friends as much. We abandon little pieces of our identity so we can pour more into the other person. And when they're gone, we're left standing there, empty-handed, thinking the only way to feel whole again is to get them back. But the truth is, the fastest way to make them feel drawn back to you is to become whole without them. Think about the version of you they first fell for. That version wasn't obsessed with keeping them. That version wasn't anxiously waiting for a text reply or planning every word to avoid pushing them away. That version of you had a spark, a life, a gravitational pull that made them want to lean in. That's the energy you need to reclaim, not for them, but for you. Because here's the irony. When you stop trying to win someone back and start winning yourself back, that's the moment they feel the difference. They can feel when your energy has shifted, when you're no longer glued to your phone hoping to see their name pop up, when you're not watching their stories like clockwork or liking their posts in the hope that it sparks something. When your attention is on building your life again, it sends a message without you saying a single word. I don't need you to complete me anymore. And that message is powerful because it creates contrast. Suddenly, they're not so sure you're still waiting around for them. Suddenly, they have to work to figure out where they stand with you. People chase what feels scarce. They value what feels earned. And if they sense you're still emotionally tethered to them, there's no mystery, no pull, no reason for them to step up. But the moment you start living for yourself again, really living, they're faced with a choice. Either they step back into your life and meet you at your level, or they watch from the sidelines as someone else recognizes your worth. It's not easy to do this, I know. Every part of you will want to break the silence, to check in, to remind them you're still there, but resist that urge. Not because it's a tactic, but because you deserve to see what happens when you stop pouring all your energy into someone who hasn't been meeting you halfway. The secret isn't about chasing harder or proving yourself to someone who's undecided about you. The secret is to shift your energy so powerfully that they start questioning how they let you slip away. Because once they feel that shift, once they see you no longer orbiting their life, it's no longer about whether you'll chase them. It's about whether they can still catch up to you. And that's when everything begins to change. Most people don't realize how predictable they've become after a breakup. It's not intentional, of course. It comes from a place of missing someone, from wanting them to know you're still there, still thinking about them, still holding on to a connection that feels too precious to let go of. But that predictability, the texts at night, the Instagram stories that are obviously aimed at them, the likes on their photos, even when they haven't responded to yours. It's the very thing that kills any chance of them missing you. Because when someone knows exactly how you'll behave, they lose all sense of mystery about you. And without mystery, there's no reason for them to think about you, to wonder about you, or to chase you. You've already given them the answer. You're still there, waiting. And nothing kills attraction faster than the certainty that someone hasn't moved on. Imagine for a second what would happen if you flipped that. If, instead of showing up in ways they've come to expect, you pulled back and became completely unreadable to them. No cryptic messages, no accidental run-ins, no breadcrumbs that say, "I'm still watching your life unfold." The silence wouldn't just be silence. It would be a bold statement. It would create a gap they're not used to feeling, and in that gap, their mind would start to spiral. Why aren't you reaching out? Why aren't you liking their photos anymore? Why does it seem like you've vanished from their world? That's when curiosity creeps in. And curiosity is the first spark that lights desire. People don't chase what they're certain of. They chase what they feel they could lose. So if you're easy to read, if they can predict your next move, they'll feel no urgency to come closer. They'll feel no reason to fight for your attention because they know it's already there for the taking. But when you disrupt that pattern, when you do the thing they least expect, you wake them up from the comfort of your predictability. Suddenly, they can't be sure anymore. They can't rely on the idea that you'll always be there in the background, waiting for them to change their mind. And here's what's fascinating. This doesn't require games or manipulation. It's not about trying to craft some perfect strategy. It's about having the courage to step back and let your absence do what your presence never could. Because the moment you stop proving your worth to them is the moment they start questioning their own. They start asking themselves why they haven't heard from you. They start wondering what you're doing, who you are with, what could possibly have shifted in you that made you stop orbiting around them. That's when you begin to take up space in their mind, not because you're forcing your way in, but because you've left a silence loud enough for them to notice. Think of it like this. When a song plays on repeat, you stop paying attention to it. It fades into the background, and you barely notice it's there. But when the music stops suddenly, you notice the silence, you notice the absence, and that absence pulls you out of autopilot and makes you crave the sound again. That's the effect you create when you break the cycle of predictability. The truth is, most people don't have the patience for this. They break the silence too soon. They post something online they hope will get a reaction. They send a text because they can't stand the discomfort of wondering what's going on in their ex's head. But that discomfort, that's the test. That's the moment that determines whether you'll regain your power or give it away all over again. If you can hold the line, if you can resist the pull to make yourself seen, You'll watch the dynamic shift in ways you couldn't have imagined. Your ex isn't going to chase you because you sent the perfect message or made them jealous with a photo. They're going to chase you when they feel the loss of your presence, when they can no longer predict your behavior, when they realize the version of you they thought they had on lockdown no longer exists. That's when it starts. That's when they come forward, not because you demanded it, but because they can't help themselves. So the question is, are you willing to let go of being predictable long enough to let that shift happen? Or are you going to keep showing up in ways that only remind them they don't have to move toward you? The power isn't in what you do to pull them back. The power is in what you stop doing. And when you stop giving them the certainty they've come to rely on, you give them the gift of desire again. Because no one chases what's always within reach. They chase what they're afraid of losing forever. There's a moment after a breakup where everything in you wants to reach out. You're sitting there, phone in hand, scrolling through old photos, reading old messages, replaying memories that feel like they happened just yesterday. And there's this voice inside saying, maybe if I just send a quick text, they'll realize how much they miss me. Maybe if I remind them of what we had, they'll come back. That voice is loud and it's persuasive. But here's the problem. Every time you act on that impulse, you rob them of the one thing that could actually make them feel the pull to come back. Your absence. You see, people don't start missing someone when they're constantly reminded that person is still there. They miss them when there's a gap, a space, a silence that they weren't expecting. Right now, your ex may assume they still have access to you. They may think you're waiting in the wings, that if they decided to come back tomorrow, you'd still be there, ready to welcome them with open arms. And as long as they believe that, there's no urgency for them to do anything. Why would there be? They already feel they've got you. But the second you pull away, that's when the game changes. Your silence isn't weakness. It's power. It creates a vacuum. It's like taking away oxygen from a room. Suddenly, they're left wondering, wait, where did they go? Why aren't they texting me? Why aren't they liking my posts? Have they moved on? That little spark of curiosity is where everything begins. Because as much as people hatred it, human nature is wired this way. We don't truly value what we think, what we feel we could lose. We fall. What we feel we could lose. And when your ex starts to notice the absence of your energy in their life, when they don't get that good morning text, when you're no longer the first to view their story, when your name stops popping up in their notifications, they're left alone with their thoughts. And do you know what those thoughts sound like? They sound like, did I make a mistake? Now, I'm not saying this happens instantly. Sometimes it takes days. Sometimes it takes weeks. But here's the key. The silence gives them room to feel the consequences of their decision. It gives them the space to process their emotions without you trying to manage them and without you trying to control the outcome. Because if you're always showing up in some way, checking in, sending breadcrumbs of attention, you never give them the chance to experience the reality of what life feels like without you in it. I get it, though. Pulling away feels counterintuitive. It feels like you're letting them slip away for good. But the truth is, if someone can forget about you the moment you stop chasing them, they were never truly invested to begin with. And if they are still emotionally connected, your absence will only magnify that connection. Think about it like this. If you're in a room full of noise and one sound goes quiet, you might not notice at first. But eventually, when that missing sound was one you subconsciously relied on, you start to crave it. You start to feel its absence deeply. That's what you're doing here. You're removing the sound of your presence from their life. And the beauty of this approach is that it doesn't just give you leverage. It gives you clarity too. Because while you're giving them space to wonder about you, you're also creating space for yourself to recalibrate, to remind yourself of your value, to reconnect with who you are when your world isn't revolving around them. And that's when you become magnetic. Because true attraction isn't born from desperation. It's born from confidence, from calm, from the energy of someone who knows they're a prize to be won. This isn't about punishing them. It's not about playing games. It's about resetting the dynamic so that if they do come back, it's because they chose to. Not because you begged or convinced them. You don't want someone who's with you out of guilt or obligation. You want someone who's with you because they can't imagine their life without you. So the next time you're tempted to break your silence, stop and ask yourself, am I reaching out because it serves me, or because I'm afraid of what happens if I don't? If it's fear driving the action, stay still. Let them feel the weight of your absence. Let them realize what life feels like when your light isn't shining on them. And in that quiet, something powerful happens. They don't just start thinking about you, they start craving you. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all. Most people think the way to make their ex miss them is by doing something dramatic, sending a heartfelt message, posting some cryptic quote, or trying to make them jealous by showing off a new date. But the truth is, none of those things actually create the kind of emotional shift that pulls someone back in. If anything, they just make you look like you're still orbiting around them, still waiting for their approval. And the thing about human nature is that we rarely chase what feels completely accessible. What draws people in is when they feel they're missing out on something valuable, something they no longer have access to. That's why one of the most powerful things you can do right now is upgrade your life in a way that is both authentic and visible. When I say upgrade your life, I don't mean faking it for social media or trying to look like you're living your best life just to get their attention. That kind of energy is transparent, and trust me, people can feel when it's not real. What I'm talking about is making real changes that light you up from the inside out, doing things that make you feel alive, passionate, and connected to yourself again. Because here's what happens when you genuinely start investing in yourself, it radiates in a way no Instagram post ever could. You stop giving off that energy of longing, and instead you become magnetic. Think about it this way. When they were with you, they got used to a certain version of you. They thought they knew everything there was to know. They felt they could predict your moves, your reactions, your patterns. And when someone believes they've got you figured out, the intrigue fades. But the moment they see a version of you they didn't expect, a version that is growing, exploring, evolving, they can't help but pause and wonder, wait a second, what's happening here? Did I underestimate what I had? This isn't about putting on a performance for them. It's about shifting the focus back to you. Take a moment and ask yourself, what parts of your life have you been neglecting? What dreams, hobbies, or passions did you set aside because you were so focused on the relationship? Now is the time to pour energy into those things. Maybe it's a fitness goal you've been putting off. Maybe it's reconnecting with old friends and building a stronger social circle. Maybe it's pursuing a skill or hobby that you've always wanted to explore, but never gave yourself permission to. Whatever it is, the key is to do it for you, not for them. Because when you start living a life that excites you, you naturally give off an energy that others want to be around. Here's what's fascinating. When your ex starts noticing this shift, it triggers something in their mind. They see that you're not sitting around pining for them, that your happiness is no longer tied to whether or not they're in your life. And that realization can be unsettling. People are drawn to what they can't fully possess, and when they see you out there enjoying life, smiling in photos with friends, glowing in a way you didn't when you were with them, they begin to feel a sense of loss. Not because you're trying to make them feel that way, but because they can't ignore the fact that you're becoming someone they no longer have access to. There's a difference between posting a selfie in a desperate attempt to make them jealous and showing up in the world in a way that naturally makes people take notice. One comes from insecurity, the other from true self-worth. And here's the irony. The more you focus on genuinely upgrading your life, the less you even care whether they're watching, and that's when they feel it the most. Because the emotional pull isn't in what you say or do directly to them. It's in the fact that you've stopped needing their validation altogether. The most attractive energy in the world is someone who is happy, fulfilled, and confident without needing another person to complete them. When you embody that, you become the kind of person others chase. Not because you're playing games, but because you're living in alignment with your own value. Your ex will sense that change, even if they never say a word. They'll feel the shift in how you carry yourself, how you speak, how you show up. And that's when the power dynamic flips. Suddenly, they're no longer the one deciding whether they want you back. They're wondering if they've lost their chance with you forever. And that's the secret. You don't pull them back by trying to prove your worth to them. You pull them back by realizing your worth for yourself and showing the world, including them, that your life doesn't stop because they're no longer in it. And once they see that, they'll either rise to meet you at your new level, or they'll realize they were never meant to. Either way, you win. You know what keeps most people stuck after a breakup? It's that constant replaying of the past in their mind, analyzing every word, every argument, every moment where they think they could have done something differently. And the moment they speak to their ex again, all of that comes rushing out. They bring up the breakup. They ask for explanations. They try to make sense of it. But let me tell you something crucial. If you want any chance of flipping the script, you have to let the past stay in the past. When you do get the chance to interact with them again, don't let the old narrative define the new dynamic. Because here's the thing. People aren't drawn back to you when they're reminded of pain or conflict or guilt. They're drawn back when they can sense a shift in your energy, when you're no longer attached to what went wrong. That's when curiosity creeps in. That's when they start asking themselves, wait, how is this person so calm? How are they so light, so grounded, when I'm still halfway caught up in this? And here's where most people make the mistake. They think bringing up the breakup will somehow fix things. They imagine if they could just explain their side one more time or get their ex to admit fault, it will create closure. Or worse, make them want to come back. But in reality, every time you rehash the past, you're dragging both of you back into the emotional mess that pushed them away in the first place. What works isn't trying to rewrite history, it's showing, through your words, your tone, your vibe, that you've accepted it and you've grown from it. That doesn't mean you have to fake being over it. It means you need to embody a mindset of, I'm okay now. And I know I'll be okay whether we reconnect or not. That's magnetic. That's rare. And that's the energy that flips the power dynamic without you even trying. So when the conversation happens, whether it's a random text, a call, or you bump into each other, be light, be present. Don't treat it like an opportunity to prove something or win them over. Treat it like two people simply catching up, no pressure, no agenda. If they ask how you've been, don't dive into a monologue about your heartbreak or your struggles. Share something positive, something that reflects you moving forward in life. It could be as simple as saying, I've been doing really well, actually. I've been spending time with people I love, working on some new things for myself. It's been good. That small shift in tone plants a seed in their mind that maybe, just maybe, they're no longer the center of your world. And that's powerful because, let's be honest, when someone leaves you, there's a part of them that expects you to stay stuck, to keep reaching out, to orbit around them emotionally, even if they're not reciprocating. But when you reappear without that neediness, when you show up with lightness and calm, it challenges their expectations. It makes them wonder, wait, are they actually okay without me? Did they move on? Was I wrong in thinking they couldn't let go? This is where the shift begins, because in that moment, you're no longer the person chasing them. You've become the person they're trying to figure out. And the less you try to convince them of anything, the more space you give for their own emotions to rise. You see, people aren't persuaded back into love. They're pulled back by feelings they can't ignore. Your job isn't to spark a debate about what happened. Your job is to spark a feeling that they're losing someone rare, a feeling that the door to you isn't wide open anymore, and if they want back in, they'll have to work for it. So, drop the need to explain, drop the need to justify. Instead, radiate calm confidence. Show them, through your energy, that you're not bitter, but you're also not waiting. You're living, you're growing. And if they want access to this evolved version of you, it's going to be on your terms now. It's not about pretending you don't care. It's about reaching a place where their validation isn't the thing holding you together anymore. That's the real secret. Because when they feel you've detached from the past, and more importantly, detached from them, that's when they feel the pull to come closer again. That's when they realize the only way to have you back is to meet you at this new level you've created for yourself. And in that moment, you've stopped chasing. You've stopped pleading. You've stopped playing small. You've become the person they now have to chase. Because nothing is more irresistible than someone who has learned how to let go and glow without you. The mistake most people make after a breakup is putting all their energy into figuring out how to get the other person back. They spend hours analyzing texts, replaying conversations, asking friends what they think it means when their ex liked a photo or didn't respond to a message. But here's the truth most don't want to hear. The version of you that was left behind is not the version that will make them come running back. You don't get someone to chase you again by staying the same person they walked away from. You get them to chase you by becoming the person they fear losing for good. Think about it. When they broke up with you, there was probably some level of comfort on their end. They knew they could walk away, and maybe part of them even assumed you'd still be there if they changed their mind later. That safety net makes it easy to leave. But what happens when that safety net disappears? What happens when they realize that the person they thought would always be there isn't waiting anymore? Suddenly there's urgency. Suddenly they're not sure they can get you back even if they tried. That's when the tables turn. You see, the moment you stop making them the center of your universe is the moment you reclaim your power. And it's not about faking confidence or trying to appear like you don't care. It's about actually rebuilding yourself to the point where you no longer need their validation. That's the kind of energy people can feel even from a distance. They sense it when you're no longer checking their social media, when you're not responding within seconds, when you're not liking their posts just to remind them you exist. That absence, that shift in energy creates a ripple effect in their mind. But here's where most people sabotage this process. They try to upgrade their life purely to make their ex jealous. They post carefully curated pictures. They show off. They force a narrative of, look how happy I am without you. And the problem is, your ex can feel when it's inauthentic. They can sense when everything you're doing is still about them. That doesn't create attraction. It creates a sense of control on their end because they know they're still the one pulling the strings. What actually works is upgrading your life for you. Diving into the gym because you want to feel stronger, not because you're hoping they'll notice. Building a social life because it nourishes you, not because you're hoping they'll see you with other people. Following your passions because they make you alive, not because you're trying to prove anything. When your growth comes from a place of authenticity, it radiates in a way you can't fake. And here's the paradox. The moment you stop trying to get them back, you become infinitely more attractive to them because now they're not dealing with the same person they left. They're dealing with someone who is glowing, confident, magnetic, someone they can't quite figure out anymore. And human nature is wired this way. We want what feels rare. We chase what feels like it might slip away. When your ex starts to see this version of you, their mind goes into overdrive. They start asking themselves, did I make a mistake? Have they moved on? Are they slipping through my fingers? That's the exact moment they stop feeling like they're in control. They go from being the one who had all the options to being the one who's suddenly unsure. And that fear of losing you for good is far more powerful than any words you could ever say to convince them. But here's the critical part. You can't just do this as a tactic. This isn't about pretending to move on to make them chase. It's about actually moving on. Because when you really do, when you genuinely step into your power and start living a life you're proud of, you give off a completely different energy. One they can feel even in your absence. It's the energy of someone who knows their worth, someone who isn't afraid of losing the wrong person, someone who's not waiting around for someone else to choose them. That's when everything changes. That's when they start thinking about what they've lost. That's when they begin to wonder how they can get your attention again. And maybe they do come back. Maybe they reach out and try to test the waters. But by then, you're no longer in the position of the one trying to prove your value. You're the one deciding if they are even worthy of being in your life again. That's the ultimate power shift. Because the truth is, the secret to making someone chase you again isn't about chasing them harder. It's about becoming so strong, so fulfilled, and so undeniably attractive, inside and out, that they realize losing you wasn't just a breakup. It was the biggest mistake of their life. And once they see that, they can't help but want you back.